Okay, so at this point you should have a 2-scale color sketch of your design for the color scheme project. Here's the one I did, and I am using photo references. You may or may not be using photos as a source material for your project, but here's what mine looks like with the colors placed on top of the photos. So the next step is going to be that you're going to need to transfer your design onto your sheet of Bristol paper for painting. And what I am actually going to do, now not all of you again are using photos, but if you're using photos, you'll want to print them out 2 ways. So I have here just the regular photo printed out, and then I also have it printed out, the posterized version, which, like I said before, is going to help me decide where and how I can use different values for each hue in my color painting. But as you notice, there's certain areas where I've lost information on my posterization. I've lost the contour lines, I've lost the edges in some areas. So what you can do is you can transfer the contour lines from this over to this as long as you line them up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this over. You can see I was recycling some worksheets in my printing here. Always a good thing to recycle. So I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to just use the side of my pencil right where I know I need to transfer. I'm just going to use the side of my pencil and then get a couple pieces of tape, and I'm going to line this up. And I've cut along the image here so that I could line it up properly. Put a little tape there. And then I'm going to use that same pencil. Looks like I didn't do a great job lining it up, so let me fix that. This edge. Be easier to line up this edge. Okay. And let's see how this works. Did it move it over enough? Try again. All right, and there it is. So then I can see exactly where that contour line is supposed to be, and I can go over it to make it a little darker. In some of these areas, I can pretty much just guess where the contour line is. I don't have to be tracing it for everything, but if there are sections where you think you might get confused, where you think you don't have enough information, you can definitely do that technique. So anywhere where you think you need it. For the most part, I think I'm going to be able to figure out where those contour lines are. Okay, so then the next step, whether or not you're using photos or you're using a drawing, is you basically want to create your own carbon paper, your own transfer paper. If you have carbon paper at home, feel free to use that. But otherwise, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be flipping your photo over and doing exactly what you saw me just do. Not having it being a recycled worksheet helps here just to see where my images are. And it can help. I'm using a number 2 pencil because that might be what you have. You should have one of your B pencils though, and it'll help if you use one of your B pencils because it'll be softer. So if you use a 4B or a 6B, it'll give you a darker transfer. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over my whole image. Everywhere I know I have information that needs to be transferred, I'm going to go over that. I'm going over it a second direction just to make sure I really have it covered, but if you're using a B pencil, you may not have to do that. And again, I'm just going to do it this direction. All right. So now it's going to be, because mine has a border on here and I'm not going to want that border, I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. So I'm going to line up my ruler here, make myself a line. Normally I would say to use a paper cutter, but seeing as most of you probably don't have a paper cutter at home, I'm going to go ahead and use the scissors. I think I can get it close enough to line it up on my Bristol. Okay. All right, so I have my image here. This again can be a sketch if you're just doing a hand drawing. And again, I want to tape it so it's not moving around too much. So I'm going to line it up with the corner of my Bristol. And I can see here where I'll be able to cut my Bristol down later. Not going to worry about that yet. And I'm just going to tape it in two places. I have it taped at the bottom and I have it taped at the top. All right. So next I'm going to go ahead and just transfer those lines by tracing. Move it down here. And after I make a few lines, I'm going to want to peek and just make sure that those lines are transferring, and they are, so that's good news. So obviously the first thing I want to do is just make sure I'm getting all the contour lines that I'm going to need in order to paint this. But then once I'm starting to get the contour lines in, I'm also going to need, or want to, in this case, since I've already figured out where some of my value separations are, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to transfer some of those as well. All right, so as I'm going along here, I'm noticing that I have some information from where, for example, I'll be able to add little shadow areas to give that feeling of the corduroy. So I'm going to go ahead and put those lines in as a reference point. And then same on here, I'm going to put in those little reference lines. And they're, you know, kind of what the shape of some of these changes. So for example, right here, there's a shift from a darker value to a lighter value. So I'm going to give myself a little reference line so I know where that is when I'm actually painting. These little cross contour lines that show me the texture of the corduroy. I'm going to draw all of that in now so that I don't have to just make it up when it's time to paint. All of the little stripes in here and the stripes on the fabric, all these cross contour lines. I'm going to go ahead and just give myself as much information as possible. I go to paint, I won't have to guess. So I'll continue on that way, and I'm going to do a little peek here. Lift up my tape. So you can see there's my sketch. Let's see if you can see it there. There he is. So there's my sketch with some information on the cross contour lines, where the shadows go, so that when I go to paint, I'll have as much information as possible.